This episode is brought to you by the love of supporting independent film. Daniel here. I'm sure you've all heard people complaining about how they don't make anything original anymore. Just a bunch of sequels, prequels, reboots, remakes. Well, I recently wrote a feature film with my good friend Ian Rayburn called Deathmatch Dad. It's something original. It's a family drama that has ultra-violent deathmatch wrestling in part of it. So if that sounds like something you're interested in and want to see on the big screen, please help us out. We have started an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. There are multiple levels of contribution with multiple perks. Please check it out in the episode description. You know, if you're listening on your phone, it's probably there. If you're listening on a website, it's also there. So please click on the link and see how you can help us bring our film to the masses and make sure that we can pay everybody involved properly and pay for the locations that we need. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy this episode about The Mandalorian.
Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And ban
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom. Hey, guess what? It's Chapter 5, The Gunslinger.
Pew, pew, pew. For those that didn't know, I just did finger guns towards Dan because finger guns are always appropriate.
Always.
Always.
Who's the gunslinger in this? Is it the Mandalorian? Or is it the other guy?
I don't know if it's the Mandalorian or Fennec because I.
Oh yeah, I guess it could
like
be
I'm
Fennec,
thinking
'cause
it's
she's
Fennec.
she's the assassin.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
There's a lot to say about this
Chapter
episode.
5.
Yeah. This is easily going to be one of the most divisive episodes in this whole series, I think.
also the first episode written by Dave Filoni.
Yes, not written by Favreau, written by Filoni, which is very evident in the whole episode or chapter, I should say.
Well, first of all, I want to say the cast, great. I love Amy Sedaris.
Yes, I do.
She is on BoJack Horseman more like she's his agent, manager.
Sure.
The kitten, she's great.
Yep.
Amazing on that. And not more recently, but also recently, she was on Broad City as like the real estate agent. That's insane. And I'm always happy to see her. That was great.
So basically, really good at playing eccentric characters, which is the energy she brought to this chapter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most like toned down I've seen her in a while.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. She goes
not familiar
way,
with this.
She
person,
goes way higher than
Okay.
this.
Very, very cool.
She shows up to the appointment in Broad City. They're looking at new apartments. She shows up to the appointment with a neck cast, and like she's just like, you know what? You can scream as loud as you want. They can't hear you. And I think she shows up later in like a pedicab, but like she's the one driving it. But she's like, "Can you guys drive for me? My feet are killing me."
That's
It's
hilarious.
like she's great. Anyway, also Jake Cannavale. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but he is Bobby Cannavale's son. At first, I was like, "Is that guy his brother?"
Is that the rookie bounty hunter guy?
Yes.
You're talking about? Okay,
I was like,
yeah,
is that his brother? I'm like, oh, this guy's born in 95. And then I'm like, oh, no, that's just his straight up son. That is the son of, I mean, for fans of this podcast, Bobby Cannavale is
Which
in The
y'all
Irishman.
are. Yeah.
I mean, he is in The Irishman, but maybe you know him more from the Ant-Man movies. He plays the new husband.
Yes.
Who just gets along with Scott
Yeah.
no matter what. Yeah, I really like Bobby Cannavale. That's his son. It's great. Like when I was watching the second time, I was just like, "Oh, that is Bobby Cannavale." Like I was just like,
Yeah, he looked
at first I was
very
like, "Why do
familiar.
I think this guy's familiar? Like, what is this guy from?" And then that's Bobby Cannavale's son. Obviously, Ming-Na Wen's in it. I am just always a fan of hers.
Yeah. More to say on that later.
That is what I have to say about the cast.
Cast in this. Now, one thing before we
strong-
actually go into the actual chapter itself, are you at this point in the series getting a little bit disappointed that all these big characters that were like announced at the beginning of when the whole thing was launched, like Nick Nolte, all these different amazing actors, being a part of it. It seems like they're just self-contained within one episode or something like that, and not actually throughout the whole thing, with the exception of Carl Weathers having like multiple roles
Werner
and being
Herzog
in season
and,
2.
What's the doctor?
Yeah.
Something Omid.
Yeah.
That is what I was going to bring up. We can talk about it now, or we can talk about it after we get into the chapter, but looks like we're doing it now.
Yeah.
I think, yes, at chapter 5, we're past the halfway point now, and I am a bit disappointed that one of the symptoms is just killing off characters right away. But it feels a bit too episodic for me. I get that it's kind of like a hybrid, because obviously we're just tracking like what's going to happen with the Mando now that he's decided to take care of Baby Yoda, but there doesn't seem to be an element of truly developing characters so much as we're learning more. Well, we didn't really learn anything more about Mando this episode, but it's 5 episodes in. Maybe we've learned all we're going to learn.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like a show that's interested in developing characters. Like, how cool would it have been if we like met Jake Cannavale's character earlier, and then what happens in this chapter happens, so that it does feel like a proper betrayal, and just instead of just like, well, I don't know, like, what does he care?
Because
but
honestly, this
one way or the other, who cares what happens to him, or what? Why would he care what happens to Mando? Like, it's like not sticking with any character is feeling a bit underwhelming now.
Yeah, it's the issue with the lone gunman trope, and also with a character that is tagging along with him that doesn't really have dialogue or real.
Right, because like, you don't learn anything about Baby Yoda. Like, Baby Yoda's been a non-factor for like 3 episodes.
Exactly.
Or 3 chapters.
It's like at this point when we have a character that's constantly wearing a helmet, and we get more out of that than a Baby Yoda character. It's kind of problematic at this point. And it's like, okay, we really are doing the lone gunman thing over and over and over and over again, where we're hoping, well, I was hoping at least, that there would be a little bit more development with, like, for example, when he does try to recruit Nick Nolte, I was hoping that he'd try to recruit the shock trooper from the last episode too, and I forget her name, the MMA fighter.
Gina Carano playing Cara Luna?
Yes. I was hoping that maybe there would be a same extension to that character, or we just see her in the back of his ship this time
So
around,
what I would say is we're probably setting up for everyone coming back in the last episode.
That's what I think too, is like there's a massive
just think
thing.
that I will reserve judgment until the last episode or the last chapter. I think just episode to episode, it's good. I don't have a problem with it. I enjoy the episode, or I enjoyed the chapters. It's just when I look at it as a whole, it doesn't feel as satisfying, and maybe that's just because I've never really liked episodic film, like television and storytelling. I like even something like Saved by the Bell, where you think I would just be happy to watch Zach do something. Like there's that episode where like his family takes in like a homeless family, and I'm like, okay, but they never come back. Like even as a kid, I've been like, what the hell? Why would we just have that one episode that obviously means that's a big decision, and then just never deal with it again? So that's just on me. I understand there is a market for just doing like one-offs all the time.
Right.
I think of like the Hulk TV show, like that was that's a big just one-off. Like every episode, he's just in a place, and then he has to keep moving because he's the Hulk. You can't just stick around.
Right.
It doesn't really work for me, but I understand it works for people, and so
it does work for some people.
I think that's also probably why this does go week to week instead of dropping all at once.
Right.
Because
I think more the week to week is to stretch out. Well, aside from the release date lining up with episode 9, and
it doesn't really line up.
Well, it doesn't.
I would say is this:
in regards to
they
the
could have
hype
waited.
train.
They didn't need to release it now, right?
Right.
Like if they actually had something that was cohesive and could be binged, they would have done that.
But
I don't think that's what they're trying to do.
No,
I think they're purposefully making something that works week to week.
I think, there's that, but I also feel like there's a reason why Disney Plus is doing that, and it's because of the lack of the originals and the hype train that's going on.
Right.
Or something
I get
like that
but
too.
what I'm saying is no one told them they have to drop now.
Correct.
So that point doesn't really make sense to me, because they could have just waited and then dropped when they had a bunch of content.
Right.
what I'm saying is they have something they know can work week to week.
Right.
And I think it's purposefully done this way with the whole, each week we're going to see him do something different because that works. There is a formula for it. I think both of us are more used to things like the Netflix series where it was
Full season
just
drop.
one.
Right, yeah.
And yes, full season drop, but also just one long story.
Yes.
I don't know that that's what they're doing here.
Right.
Which is why I think it's
And then
just week to week. So that's on me. That doesn't mean it's good or bad. It means I need to
It's a preference,
recalibrate.
yeah.
I need to recalibrate what I expect out of the show because at first I was willing to be like, oh, look at the small ways they're developing. And like even last episode when I was saying like defending the choices for the what was that one called? Sanctuary.
Yes.
Because I did still see how it was still going along with what they were doing. But then I think where I'm hitting a roadblock is, yes, killing off characters. I don't know that she is dead for sure, but they killed Jake Cannavale's character. I don't even know if he had a name, but the new guild.
He did
the
have
guy,
a character.
Yeah,
I didn't bother to get to know him well enough because I'm just like, you know what?
Toro.
Yeah. I'm like, I just feel like you're going to be thrown away very, very soon just because of the way you're acting. And it's just like, oh, you seem like a really cocky kid. You're lying about a whole bunch of stuff that even I can tell. Right. And you're going to be disposable is what I immediately thought of his character and, you know, how cocky he was and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like it's only an 8-chapter season, so like we just had one chapter where we were introduced to 2 characters that get killed off.
Yes,
ostensibly. I don't know. Maybe she comes back. I would hope that.
I hope she comes back. Yeah,
but yeah, I think that is going to be something I have to deal with, and like, obviously, we said we're going to like rate this at the end. I'm glad we stuck to that.
Yes, I am too,
because this could all turn around chapter 7, 8. I just think at this point, past the halfway point, there isn't a lot to like hold on to in terms of like characters. They have set up that obviously he'll have to reckon with Carl Weathers and Werner Herzog's characters again. Whether or not they're on screen again, I still think they'll have influence over the story.
It's also been revealed that he's going to be a part of season 2.
Right.
So we know he survived. Well, he did survive.
Yeah,
he showed him
that
on camera,
yeah,
but like whether or not he still has a story arc or whether or not the Bounty Hunter Guild is still going to be involved in the storytelling process.
Well, it would be hard for it not to be involved.
Exactly.
By virtue of what he does. I think that's the big issue that's coming up is that we're running out of chapters and we don't have, other than Baby Yoda and Mando, who I guess we've learned all we're going to learn about them. No one's really sticking around because, as you said, those are 2 characters that just by the way they're written, you can't really lean into. So there's no one else around them. Like even if you kept the Amy Sedaris character, like that's just a fun foil for him because he's not that, and he's not like stuck up or anything, but it would be a fun foil for him because he even has a moment in this chapter where like she's like, you can't do that, like you have to learn how to like take care of a kid, and he's not like defensive about it. He like, you can tell he's taking in that information and internalizing it, and then just legitimately is like, oh, thank you. Like that is again, it's a character beat, but it's more like, well, she's gone now, so he's not gonna have more moments of that, or like,
or at least from her, you know, like at least with that character interaction or something.
Right,
like that.
But I guess what I'm saying is it would be interesting if you just had a character that served that function of like teaching him instead of him instead of washing and repeating with just different actors every time, giving him those types of things.
And I was actually kind of hoping that, you know, the Mandalorian Guild, for lack of a better term, whatever surviving.
You do really want them to come back. I don't think
I want them to come back. They won't come back until the final episode, though. I think.
Yeah, I don't know why.
It doesn't make sense at this point.
Yeah, that's definitely. I don't get where they would come in if you cut to them.
Yeah, which to me is sad because I'm like, oh, the RPG element just stops here until the final episode, where they meet the armorer again and all that kind of stuff, which is fine because it's like, okay, you got enough significant upgrades to make that a big thing, and they clearly show that off and re-show that off this episode too, and re-explain it too, which is something that I didn't really love or appreciate. But either way, it is what it is. Yeah, so this episode starts off with a space dogfight, which is something I'm a big fan of. Just starting off with action, really, really cool and all that kind of stuff. And just seeing how like sought after he is. The whole bounty hunter guild is really looking for him. And the dialogue here is a really, really interesting choice from Filioni, having written this episode. Now, I think the reason why is because Filioni is clearly trying to elicit nostalgic feelings on this episode, bringing us back to Tatooine, bringing us back to Mos Eisley, the Cantina, all these shots to really, really show what the Star Wars universe has progressed in after the fall of the Empire. I think it's really, really cool that he's done this. Like, Mos Eisley is dead compared to what it was in episode 4.
Oh, you've already moved on from the dogfight?
No, not really. Just like bringing up all these kind of things,
okay.
but
All right.
the choice in dialogue that he has in that, where he's like, I can either bring you, like the other
Yes.
bounty hunter being like, I can bring you in cold or I can bring you in a warm or something like that, and then Mando just like outmaneuvering him, figuring that thing out, and he's just like, that's my line. I'm like, that's very reminiscent of something dialogue that George Lucas would write, something cheesy, a throwback or something like that.
That exchange also
Yeah.
stuck with me. I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I guess obviously they can hear each other, but it's like, it doesn't seem like a Mando thing to do.
Yeah, right?
To have like a cool quip at the end of doing something.
It seemed very, very out of character, and this whole episode felt out of character, out of the whole season to me.
More so than Sanctuary.
More so than Sanctuary. Way more so than Sanctuary, for sure. Which is surprising to me that I had that immediate strong
What did you
feeling.
feel like was out of character?
It just... it was the throwbacks to all the original trilogy. It was the dialogue, the need to re-explain things and all that kind of stuff. But mostly because this was purely written by Filioni, I saw the writing style that he has, which makes Clone Wars and Resistance work so well, and Rebels work so well, being that this episode in itself was so much more childish in nature than any other episode. There was like a lot more jokes put in here and all that kind of stuff. It felt weird to me. It really
I
did.
didn't really think there were more jokes than Sanctuary.
Well, no, Sanctuary didn't have many jokes, but it was there was a
did.
lot of jokes here.
That's what we talked about
Yeah.
last episode. I'm saying I thought Sanctuary did have a lot of jokes,
Oh,
like the waitress stuff,
Right.
the "we're farmers, weren't you listening?" I think, I don't know I don't know that I saw what you saw then, because I don't
just-
think,
yeah.
I don't remember, other than Amy Sedaris stuff, I don't remember jokes.
So I just thought this was a very, very Filioni-esque written episode, and it was very, very similar to Clone Wars writing styles and all that kind of stuff, which is what threw me off the beat here so much,
Yeah.
because every other
I guess
episode
as
was
someone who
written
didn't
by
watch that
Favreau, right?
stuff, none of that factored in because I didn't
Yeah.
feel like it was off from other stuff. Yes, that line isn't really what I think of Mando, but also I don't really know Mando. Like we don't know what he's like. So I guess I don't know what you thought was different so much as you recognize stuff from other shows that Dave Filoni has
I
done.
think that's what it is. I recognize stuff that Filioni has done, and knowing that this was a Filioni written and directed
Yeah.
episode, it was just like, yep, this is clearly the storytelling you're used to, is this kind of
but
more
I would
adolescent style.
argue that each chapter does its own thing. Yes, there's an overarching thing, which I still think is here. I don't think it's that far off. But I feel like the Rick Famuyiwa one did feel like more playful than the chapter that preceded the Dave Filoni one. We talked about the Deborah Chow one. That was very action oriented.
Yes, it
was
was.
very specific. The Dallas Bryce Howard one was very warm and like more. It was different
Hopeful,
tone.
yeah.
Hopeful, but so I don't know. Really, I don't really know why you would feel this one feels way out of thing. Like
It feels way up for that reasons, because I know the Clone Wars and the Rebels TV shows so well, and those are very explicitly for kids. And this episode being written by Filioni, he has kind of carried that same energy towards this. It just threw the whole season off beat for me. Now, it doesn't make that big of a difference when you look at episode to episode to episode, but when I'm definitely going to do this, when all 8 episodes or chapters, I should say, are out, I'm going to marathon the whole thing, and there's going to be, I feel like there's going to be, if it's a speed bump, it's not going to be the Sanctuary one anymore. I think it's going to be this one. in regards to everything, just because the writing felt so different, and the cinematography also felt a little bit more different this time around. Because it was.
Oh, I definitely don't think that's true.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that they're using a different cinematographer for chapter to chapter. I don't know. That was your experience. I'm not trying to take that over.
No, of course.
I just think I don't really understand
Sure.
what you mean, because it seems like it's pretty much in line with the show. This is I guess we talk this out, it seems like what you are speaking to is what I'm coming to, which is nothing is like, there's no traction being made really. It's all like wash and repeat, and now we've hit a wash and repeat where you are like, oh, I see where this influence is. But I would also keep in mind that Dave Filoni is on as an executive producer on the same title card as Jon Favreau,
Correct.
meaning he pretty much has oversight over the writing for all of it. Yes, this is the first episode he's got a writing credit on.
Or the head writing credit, at least. I
Right.
don't know. He's
right.
like,
But I don't think this is like he just wrote this one and had no say in anything else.
No, he's
And-
definitely had say in
And I
everything
don't
else,
really
too.
know, other than your familiarity with those shows, I don't know what's more childish about this than any other episode or a chapter.
I definitely see more childish stuff here. It's hard to explain, really. It's just you have to watch like a couple episodes of Clone Wars, and you really start to pick up on the styles and the elements.
So I
and
guess
everything like
what
that.
I would say is, yes, I understand that it's like those shows.
Yep.
I haven't watched them, so I don't know, but you've watched them, so you know that it's like that.
Yep.
But I don't know that makes it more childish than what we've already seen.
Fair enough.
I think it's shown that it gets pretty childish. Like when I bump up against like him being like, whoa, on the like whatever that horn thing, and like learning to ride things.
Yes.
That gets pretty childish.
Yes. And that's Filione's influence.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
This
He's
to me just
had
felt
his
like
influence
uncaged.
all over it.
Yeah. This felt like
Because
uncaged Filione. That's
To me,
really what it
I
was.
wouldn't ever associate killing off two characters as childish. I would never.
That's fair.
I would never associate that type of storytelling with something kids are going to watch.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know why it would feel more childish, because it's like that's a pretty you're dealing with deception, you're dealing with backstabbing and crossing the line, and then showing
Murders.
people being murdered on
Yeah.
screen. So
And
it
to a
doesn't
degree,
feel-
child neneglect, which is not a childish
right.
thing
He
whatsoever.
shot at someone while they were holding a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not really sure where the childish
That's
stuff
fair.
comes in. I'm listening to Fat Man on Batman, which with right now Mark Bernardin's just doing it. So he's on with Phil Lamar, voice of like Samurai Jack, Green Lantern in the Justice League shows. And so Mark Bernardin has been talking about how he just thinks the whole thing is childish.
The whole
The
series?
whole series is childish, and I guess I had that in my head while I was watching this chapter for a second time, and I guess that's why I'm pushing back on this chapter feeling more childish, because everything, I don't agree with him that it is a children's show.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. So.
But I understand what he's saying. It's
Yeah.
a very simplistic thing. You're always going to know. There's no real, like, yes, this time there was a reversal because the kid, but because we don't know that character and we don't know where his allegiances are, it made sense to me that he would be like, oh, I don't need you. I can just take the Mandalorian. Great. So there's that. But to his point, you're not, like, challenged by anything in the show.
Yeah.
Each episode, as we said, just because we like the tropes they're playing on doesn't mean they're not very simplistic tropes.
Fair enough.
Every chapter is a trope we know and can respond to with ease. Doesn't make it a show for children, but I understand what he means. He, as a writer, he is used to being a little more intricate and meticulous about what's going on. That's not what's happening in this series as a whole. That I understand, but this chapter in particular does not seem like an outlier in that sense. This seems like perfectly in line with everything else. It's just not the Kurosawa Seven Samurai trope. It's not specifically one trope. It's probably closer to that first chapter trope, but it seems like the same to me. It's just now I'm worried that, like, if you are just killing these people off, there's nothing to hold on to really, and we really are leaning into just what is he going to get into this week, which
Because
isn't my favorite.
Yeah, because that was one of the issues with like some 90s TV shows where it's like heavily episodic, or like who's the monster of the week or
Yes,
something like that.
yeah.
It ends up now being like who's the guest star of the week.
Like
it's
Star
kind of a
Trek
similar
type
thing.
style.
Exactly.
Like, oh yeah, like okay, cool, we got this. Or
Yeah.
Batman 66. Like, oh great, Vincent Price's Egghead this week or
Yeah.
whatever.
Or like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean, it's
I
a
don't think
gentleman
they,
this week or something like that.
I don't know
Yeah.
if they've gotten to that point yet, but they certainly are doing like
It's building
what
up to
trope
that,
are
I
we
think.
doing this week
Yes.
and what like, because realistically, yes, it looks like for this season at least, it's always going to be where can, like, for this time he was just on the run. I kind of like that it started off like just in the middle of the action. You're like, yeah, he's not safe anywhere, and then the only reason he stopped moving was because he needed to get his ship fixed.
Yep.
I guess we can get into the story now. So he's forced to land on Tatooine. I'm assuming this is where he is.
Yep.
He has to land there to get his ship fixed. He needs a job to pay for
Yep.
getting his ship fixed. He doesn't want guild work. I think the bot was like, well, there is no guild work here. And he's like, well, yeah, but I don't want guild work. And he's like, it's even worse for you. Like, there's no work.
Yeah.
Jake kind of always, Toro is like, yeah, you idiot. I got a bounty. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
And they go after a like legendary assassin played by Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah.
And I loved all of her stuff. It was really sad that they were like, well, she's done now. Because I was like, I liked that she was like messing with them. It would have been nice if she even stuck with them for like another episode before they pulled the trigger on that.
Yep.
But yeah, basically she gets in Toro's head being like, you could bring me in. You're obviously going to get paid well. But if you bring the Mandalorian in, and I'll help you fight him, if you bring him in, he's worth way like what he's wearing is worth more than
The bounty
bringing me
itself,
in.
yeah.
But you also, because he keeps going, I don't care about the money, because he's like, I'm not even going to
wanted the
split this
respect,
with you.
yeah.
I'll just give you
He wanted the
to the
respect,
Mando.
yeah,
He's like,
for
I'll
sure.
just give you the money. I don't need you
Yeah.
to split this with me. You can take everything. I just want the respect of being in the guild. And she's like, you'll get that respect and you'll become like a legend. And then it's like, all right, well, yeah, obviously that's what he's going to do.
Right.
But he kills her, which I thought was I mean, I get it. He doesn't want to take any chances. She's just a loose end.
Well, I mean,
if
like,
he leaves her alive.
His rationale was solid. It's like,
Yeah.
I know if I take the binders off you, you're going to kill me. So I'm just going to kill you first and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't an honorable kill, but at the same time, like, I'm not entirely sure she's dead.
No. Well, and we'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I think he thinks she's dead, and for the purposes of this chapter, it worked. Until it didn't work for him. In that moment, it worked for him. It's not like she got back up, and then he's like, "Oh no." He got out of that situation and did exactly what he wanted to do. It's
Because this rookie bounty hunter clearly did, like, the things that Mando did in the episode to show that he was an advanced bounty hunter, in the sense where he's like, he shot at this Toro kid and then confirmed the kill, versus Toro didn't. These are things like a bounty hunter, like, or someone with more experience would do. So it was really, really nice to show that parallel, which is what opens up that floodgate to speculate whether or not Ming-Na Wen's Fennec is dead. But we'll talk
when they
more
were
about
like
that later.
approaching her and they were trying to blind her.
Yeah.
Great visuals.
Great
I was
visuals.
Really
That was
into
really fun. Yeah.
And just as a strategy, I was like, yeah, man, I like that each chapter he's got some kind of thing to like get the job done. Again, I don't know if he's great at like planning ahead or being meticulous, but as I've always argued, he will be able to deal with whatever situation he's faced with. And I thought that was a cool way, because even in that situation, he still was the one that got shot off his bike. It's not like it's not like he went through that with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, but
And-
the idea that he was like, no, I plan to get shot off my bike because he was supposed to be the distraction and all that kind of stuff, or whether or not he salvaged that. Is
Well, no, I
different
don't,
thing.
he salvaged it, because obviously where it really falls apart is when they get back to the one bike, and she's like, "Uh-oh, looks like someone has to walk."
Yep.
And then he's like, "Fuck, I gotta go get
Yep.
something." And he told Toro to do it. Toro's like, "I'm not leaving you alone with her." And that's where things fall apart. Is that if they still had the two bikes, they would have been able to go.
Fair.
But yeah, so that, and then someone leans down next to her. That I feel like that's the other issue
The
thing
thing
people
we
are
can
talking
start
about.
to
Like,
speculate about for sure.
I didn't really have any speculation. People were like, "Oh, it could be Boba Fett," and then
I don't
other
see
people,
how it could be.
and then other people have pointed out to the article where Jon Favreau was specifically like, "It's like 30 years past like when that would have been."
Well,
and I don't want any of those. I don't want any characters from those movies
exactly.
in my movie, in my show.
There's multiple reasons for that. A, because if they do that, there's clauses in the contract for the sale that they have to pay royalties to George Lucas for using the original characters and all that kind of
You
stuff.
said that, but I don't think that's true.
I think that is true.
I think they're already.
It's
going
either
to
that
because
or
he's
George
getting
Lucas.
a credit.
Yeah.
Like you don't just put that credit up without some kind of monetary.
That's fair.
Thing.
It's more speaking
if
about.
If you look on IMDb, he's credited on every episode.
Yes,
George
it's
Lucas
more speaking to the idea of like when he always says like there was that one video he did. It was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this episode and all that kind of stuff, and like react to it. And it's like, oh, and then some of the snide things he says, like, oh, I noticed how he's IG-11, not IG-88. Otherwise, they would have had to pay Daddy some
Is that a real video
check.
or is that like a joke?
I can't tell. Honestly, I can't tell. But it's it made me think that I'm like, oh, that might be a real thing because Lucas is so good at merchandising.
They're already
like
listing him as a creator. He's already going to be getting the money. I don't think
Yeah.
I think it's more what I was hoping for was not trying to tie it to the movies we already know and just trying to like create your own space. Because if they were trying to do that, they could very easily not have to be like based on George Lucas stuff. Because they would just create their own stuff. And whatever deal Disney has, they can just be like, it's through that. And we don't have to deal with the actual George Lucas. Because it's not saying, I mean, it does say Lucasfilms at the beginning, but it specifically cites George Lucas.
Yes.
Every episode.
Fair enough. So yeah, we're I think we've basically described the whole episode. I think there's a couple key points in this episode that I alluded to a little bit earlier, and something that we haven't brought up yet, which is the Tusken Raiders. But the Mos Eisley Cantina purposely showing the progression of what that looks like after post fall of the Empire.
Doesn't look fun anymore.
It doesn't look fun anymore. It looks like it was actually that was thriving a little bit more with the Empire and all that kind of stuff. Now that kind of makes sense in the sense where the oppression of the Empire not being really having a big role in the Outer Rim territories, being Tatooine, more scoundrels would have flocked to Mos Eisley as a way of being like, yeah, we're like, the Empire wants us dead and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to hide here from them, even though there were stormtroopers there. It was very clear that they outnumbered the presence of intergalactic scum, for lack of a better term, outnumbered the stormtroopers. So the stormtroopers were there as more of a patrol-based kind of thing to be like, hey, we're here, but we're really not having an influence. They're completely removed here. The cantina itself now, instead of the no droid rule and the droid scanner in the front of the entrance, was completely removed. So that's really, really cool to see. Now there's actually droids serving drinks and everything behind the bar. So I think that's a cool progression to show between the what they were trying to establish in episode 4 with droids representing slaves and all that kind of stuff, to now where it's like, no, we're actually running this show, we're running this bar kind of deal. But then Mando's still
about
having an
running,
issue.
but
right.
They're there.
They're
inside.
there. They're working there.
Yeah.
And then Mando's still having an issue with droids. That trope is really, really odd to me, and we got to figure out that.
I forgot to say, I don't remember what chapter it was. It might have been chapter 3. It makes sense that it was chapter 3 because it was the second episode we did.
Yeah.
They show that the first thing he saw after his parents got killed was a droid. I think that's why. That's his thing. Is
the battle
fuck you,
droids.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because there was like the separatist battle droid that was killing his family and all that kind of stuff.
I think that's his issue. Is like,
fair enough.
That is the image of the death of my family.
That's fair. Again, this episode is, like I said, like hints of nostalgia sprinkled throughout this episode, like very, very liberally, or strongly, or whatever you want to say. The idea of them throwing back to Mos Eisley, Tatooine, the idea of them
mentioning huts.
Yeah, mentioning the huts, using pit droids, bringing up the Tusken Raiders, which is something I want to talk about a little bit more, and then the dialogue too. Obviously, like when they're at that standoff with the sand dunes and everything like that. I thought it was very, very purposeful that Filioni wrote, oh, she has the high ground or something like that, referencing to episode 3 with the fight between Anakin and
I
Obi-Wan.
figured that was the case, yeah.
Yeah. So there was a lot of nostalgia thrown into this one, which I do appreciate. And at the same time, I was like, oh, I see what you did there. It's clever. Cool. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting episode because I think it's a very divisive episode in the sense where, so one of the things that that I keep wanting to talk about is the Tusken Raiders and how George Lucas originally treated them as a representation of the First Nations peoples and all that kind of stuff. In this regard too, that this expands on it a little bit more, and from episode 2, where they're portrayed as savages that just kidnap people out of their own home and just put them in slavery and all that kind of stuff, to episode 4, where they're just like angry and are willing to attack Luke right off the bat, and all this kind of stuff is very, very interesting to see this time around. It's like, hey, they want payment for passage and all that kind of stuff, and they're actually communicative, with sign language and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a very, very cool device that they used in the writing, to kind of give representation to people with speech, like using sign language and all that kind of stuff. Whether or not it was real ASL sign language, I would be curious to see what the feedback is, because I don't know ASL sign language. But I thought it was really, really cool that they did that, and then spoke to that a little bit more, instead of having them posed as just purely savages, and the Mandalorian being like, they think you're the locals here say that they're, and then the Mandalorian going like, they think the opposite, they're the locals and you're the invaders and all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool writing, and just sprinkles of political stuff throughout the Star Wars universe.
I think another notch on not a very childish episode.
I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really, really cool. I mean, what did you think?
I like the visuals of them chasing the stuff. I really liked everything to do with Ming-Na Wen. I get that you can't use her throughout the whole chapter. Like,
yes.
She works more like a
boss
Hannibal
fight.
Lecter.
Yeah.
No, I meant I don't mean fight. I mean actual like interacting with the character.
Oh, I see.
Because she can get into your head. Like, she's not just a physical threat. She can get into your head. It would have been nice to spend more time with a character like that can actually like fuck with people on multiple levels. But again, we don't know. Like, it's hard to say, well, it sucks that they killed her, because it looks like the point of showing her almost as a post-credit. I know this show doesn't have that, but like their version of a post-credit was coming back to her body and then having that mysterious being crouched next to her.
Yes.
Obviously, that to me seems to say she's not dead, but also that could just be someone gets information off of, like, she had information that character needs, and then that's the only reason we see her again, is her dead body being raided. I think I liked that stuff. For me, as much as I like Amy Sedaris, her stuff kind of stood out, or like there's a bit too much of her dealing with Baby Yoda, but
yeah.
I'm just happy that she got time to do her thing. Like, I'm not particularly mad at it. And I'm trying to watch each chapter twice. So the second time, I guess I felt less for the Toro character. The first time I watched, I was actually on board with like seeing because I was like, oh, like he doesn't want the money, like that's cool, and like even though he went against Mando, I still I understood where he was coming from. Like, he just wants to be he obviously feels powerless and he wants some power. So it wasn't like he wasn't like a mustache twirling villain. He was just like, well, like unfortunately for you, I'm gonna have to kill you because I need this. And that's why I was saying it would have been nice to build that tension up over a couple of chapters.
Yeah, I agree.
It would, like, if we saw him this time and you still do the killing Fennec thing, like just hinting at the fact that he like has that information now that Mando is worth more. Like, obviously you wouldn't kill her in the same circumstances. Maybe she forces him, and because he's a rookie, kills her, and it's like, oh no. But like, he also has this information of like, it's not that bad that you killed her because you still have Mando, like, and you build that up over a couple of chapters. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
One
of my questions.
He's gone, and for now she's gone because I do believe they're. I don't mean this on the same scale, but their version of like an end game thing of like, here are some characters you saw along the way, and they're back now for this chapter 8 thing.
The team up episode.
I feel like we are being set up for that.
Yep.
It's just, it would have been nice to have a bit longer arcs, even though they are trying to do a episodic thing. Like, even within episodic things, you can have kind of like 2 to 3 chapter arcs.
Yes.
Of like, like let's build up these characters before we kill them.
Yeah, they kind of did the first with Nick Nolte having like.
He got 2.
Yeah, he got 2, and that was really, really cool. Carl Weathers, like we saw, Werner Herzog, these Mead, the Dr. Pershing, and all that kind of stuff. These people have multiple episodes. So I guess whether or not that was very, very front end of the season driven, and then now they're reestablishing.
Well, he's on the run now. I get structurally why you're not having these. It's just there's still room on his ship for other people to join him while he like has to move around.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of thinking that if there wasn't a betrayal, and this is a question I'm going to ask you, do you think that he would have actually extended that invitation that he extended to Nick Nolte to Toro?
No.
You don't think he would have?
No, that's
like,
not.
hey,
that's,
why don't you
he
hang
just
with
needed
me
him for the money.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't make sense anyway because the whole idea is that he would bring in the bounty and he would become part of the guild, and he's trying to avoid the guild right now.
So my biggest thing too is, out of curiosity, what do you think? How do you think he got the bounty for Ming-Na Wen's Fennec? In the sense where he's not a part of the guild, we're understanding that those bounty pucks are only given to people that are part of the guild. So
he did have a puck.
So I'm just like, out of
I like that
curiosity, how do you?
By the way, I also like when he smashed the thing and he's like, no, it's up here.
Yeah.
You got to take me. I was like, good for you, kid.
Yeah,
you
that was
do know
smart.
some stuff.
That was smart on his part.
How did he get it? I don't know. I don't really care.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
It
kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute.
Whatever. He stole it off of someone.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe
or that was the person that they saw hanging from the.
Yeah, maybe he just stole it from that the bounty hunter that was already done.
Happen.
Maybe, yeah, that's a possibility too.
But I also truly do not care because he's dead, and
that's true.
If they try to bring it up again, I'll be like, why?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, we've gone through the whole episode. We've given thoughts and speculations and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of speculation right now. Everyone thinks that Boba Fett is the character that comes back. I don't think this is definitely not the case. I mean, like
I have seen it split.
Yeah.
I'm just dealing with Twitter. I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone other than you about this chapter. Yes. It's just I have seen equal parts. It can't be because this is what Jon Favreau said in particular.
Right.
And I don't know that. I guess maybe he thinks, wouldn't it be cool if I lied about this and then it was Boba Fett? But I don't But I don't know what he gains from lying about outwardly lying. There's a difference between being I don't know, or I don't want to comment. Because I'm listening to a lot of Damon Lindelof talking about Watchmen, and he's having fun with it, but so he doesn't have to confirm or deny anything. But when he's asked these head-on questions, he's just like, "Well, wouldn't that be interesting?" Or I don't know, let's see. I don't
just to mess with.
He's like, "Oh, a good idea. That's a good idea," but he's not confirming or denying anything. He's just having fun. Obviously, Jon Favreau's not Damon Lindelof. They're two separate people. Yes. But I just feel like he's in a similar situation where he's got people speculating on his work. It would be nice if he didn't flat out lie or confirm anything. Yeah. So for him to be no, because of this, I'm that makes sense to me.
I just
don't want it to be.
Yeah, I just think at this point in time, I love everything Disney puts out in regards to the MCU, and we've known that we've been burnt with a lot of misdirects before, and that's just smart on their part because they don't want to ruin the movies or anything like that, especially in trailers, and they make special edits and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just every time anyone associated with Disney says anything anymore, I'm just
I think
got to take it with a grain of salt. That's how I look at it.
Star Wars is decidedly different than MCU.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, in the same way, it's just okay, well, let's not spoil it, so let's misdirect you. Maybe that's a role on a decision Favreau made, or maybe it's the PR people. We don't know, because at the same time, it's just well, the revenue generated from this has already been done, in the sense where it's like, okay, well, you either have people that signed up for the 2 months that it spans, or you have people signed up for the full year. You're not going to get any more money out of it. You're going to get more promo out of it, but
I know people that don't have it yet. You could still be getting money.
Well, that's because it's the only original that Disney Plus has right now that is actually worth anything.
I wouldn't say that. I would say for us, yes.
For
but
us,
there are people who would love the like National Geographic stuff, like the. I'm not saying it's in the same numbers. I'm just saying for us, yes, it's the only original that matters.
That's
but
because the Jeff Goldblum show is fun.
I'm sure there's a group. Yeah, there's a group of people that would love the Jeff Goldblum thing. There's a bunch of people that would love the High School Musical thing. They've got a bunch of. I think because they would just be a different age, and that would mean something different to them.
Right.
I think. I think the thing they did was they launched knowing they've got like whatever targets they're going after. They've got the one show for that target.
That's fair.
That they're going to launch with.
Right. Until the Marvel Plus.
And then even then, I don't know how like overarching that is. Like it's not like Pauline who will watch certain Marvel movies. Like she refuses to watch the Iron Man and Captain America one, but she'll watch the Avenger ones.
Okay.
She's not going to be interested in watching
Loki
or Winter Soldier and Falcon.
Soldier,
but she's not a Marvel fan. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know how widespread those shows even will be. I get that they're like, you have to watch if you want to understand the movies, but Pauline's already not on board with watching everything, and she
it's fair.
Endgame is pretty high up on her list for this year.
Yeah, it's a big commitment to have, right?
So I think they haven't made all the money they can make yet. They still have time to convert people,
right?
Especially people that would be like, I'll just wait until after it's all out.
Fair.
Or people like, I'll wait to hear if it's good or not.
Now, back to this mystery character with Fennec. I'm very certain that Fennec is not actually dead.
Right.
B, I think the better idea here is we're going week to week, like character or guest star of the weekend or anything like that. I think the introduction of Giancarlo Esposito
I think
makes
it is
a
him.
lot more sense.
I think it just is him.
Yeah, because the thing is, every promotional footage we've seen of Giancarlo, who plays Gustavo Fring on Breaking Bad, is in a desert-like environment. So why would it not? Just because I think it's fun to speculate. It's Boba Fett. It's just very likely not going to be, because
unless they retcon it and they're like, this is what Boba Fett looked like under the helmet.
Well, not necessarily. That actually could be a thing, but I mean, we do know what Boba Fett looks like over there.
That's why it would be a retcon.
Yeah. That he's like, Jango Fett was this age, and now Boba Fett is this age because he got out of the Sarlacc pit and all that kind of stuff. But in the Sarlacc pit, he could still survive because it's like a time warp in the Sarlacc pit that not only digests you for 1,000 years, but keeps you alive for 1,000 years too.
Got it.
So him being pulled out of it is very, very likely and could happen. And I think maybe one of the spin-offs that they were considering before they're like, hold on, let's back off for a little bit and do stuff outside the original trilogy. But I think it's just Giancarlo Esposito, and it's just the most obvious answer. That's the case.
I was just giving people the out that just because it's that actor doesn't mean it's not that character.
Correct.
I think you're right, though. I think it will be him and whatever character he's playing.
Yep.
That makes the most sense to me. I forgot that he was supposed to be in it. I think another thing, while I was watching, I was like, they showed stuff with like Bill Burr, and I'm like, I keep coming back to this for this particular episode we're doing right now. It is kind of a bummer that they're not building up other characters as we go along. I understand now that we're probably just going to have to deal with the fact that Giancarlo probably will be a one-off. Same with Bill. For this season. That doesn't mean they're not going to ever come back, but like, I think we're both used to really developing everything,
especially in the Star Wars world, right? It's just like, here's Rose, and now she's a heavy part of Episode 9.
I mean in TV. I'm not talking about film.
Right, in TV,
I'm film. I'm talking about like specifically and you do watch the animated stuff. I don't watch it. I probably will start. after this is done.
It's good. It's good storytelling.
Yeah, I wasn't
It's
watching
fantastic,
because
yeah.
it wasn't good. It's just I didn't.
It's a-
I
it's
don't
a big
have
commitment.
like
Yeah.
now that I have Disney Plus and it's just right there for me. I'm like, yeah, I can watch it.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about like,
I will say,
oh,
it's
how
a
am I going to
big
get each
commitment,
episode?
though, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also rewatching the Spider-Man '94 show.
Yeah,
And,
that
like,
show's
it's just, like,
sick.
at first, I was like, "What? Only season one?" Fuck. And then I just kept scrolling. Oh, it's the whole.
It's
Series.
the whole catalog. Yeah.
Amazing.
Because
Great.
I think
I
back
will be
then they
watching.
didn't do seasons for
Oh, they
those
do.
animated. Did they? Okay.
If you go on IMDb, it's 5 seasons, and
Right.
I remember that as a kid that it was like each season was a specific like. It became that like it was like
Right.
okay, now he's dealing with becoming a spider. This is season 2. Now he's dealing
Right.
with like,
Right. That's what it was. Yeah. And we'll rewatch the hell out of that show.
and now that I'm rewatching,
awesome.
I'm like, oh, like it actually is continuing on. Like in, like I think it's like episode 3. He like references what happened in episode 2 and there's a like actual cause and effect of like what's going on. I'm like, oh, like as it must be why I liked it, but like I just assumed since it was from back then that it would all just be like you can watch this in any order, but like. It legitimately is like no, because that happened last episode. This is happening to me now.
Right. It's right now currently because of the Disney Plus. I'm just like, oh my god, I can finally watch The Simpsons now and not feel guilty. Like I could do that. So that's what I've been rewatching right now. Is a lot of The Simpsons.
It's really hurting my feelings, the aspect ratio. So I haven't really gotten.
yeah.
But I am jumping around. Like don't get me. I'm not like oh I can't watch it. I'm just like it's. I know I'm missing. Because Simpsons pretty visual, I'm missing some stuff as they cut off the top and bottom and stretch it.
I didn't really realize it until the episode I watched like last night, which is like the one where Herb Powell comes back, his stepbrother.
Love it.
yeah.
Yeah, Danny DeVito.
Yeah, and he does have like there's a joke that's clearly the aspect ratio does cut
Yeah.
off the joke, and it's just like I know what happened because I've seen this rerun so many times, but I'm like this does suck.
Yeah,
when they
But
mess
it's
around with
it's
the
a
aspect
very
ratio.
visual show.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
They like use a lot of space to get jokes in.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Mandalorian. Yeah, let's see what happens. Even more so now, I'm invested in being like, let's see what happens at the end to see as a season how I feel. I guess I'm just and there's shows that I watch, like that do just deal in it's pretty episodic. Like I watch The Orville, but that's because I grew up watching Star Trek Next Generation, so I'm used to that element. It's not my favorite type of TV, but because The Orville's so close visually and tonally to Star Trek Next Generation, I'm like, it just feels like comfort food. I get it.
Fair enough.
I'm on board. It's because I guess it is because it's on a streaming platform and stuff. I'm like, I just wish it was closer to telling a more serialized story.
Right. That's my hope is it's going to develop into at some point.
Maybe.
I
I don't
don't
think
know.
it will. I think
You think it's going to?
I think it's going to stay like this, and it's just going to be me being like, now I know.
I think this is why it's just one of those things where I'm like, it's gonna affect me as a TV show. I'm like, you can only do the lone gunman thing for such a long time.
Well, I'm
before
only
it's
going to base it
becomes
season by
this.
season.
Right.
I don't.
That fair?
I don't know what they're going to do season 2. They might be able to change it. It's just, I think it would be good for them if they want to have longevity to do it the way they're doing it, because then you can really stretch stuff out. You could be
Yes.
like in season 3, bring back like, I know she might be coming back, but you could bring back Gina Carano in like season 3, and everybody's just like, oh yeah, like she's here again, and like you can space things out a bit more that way. I understand that, but
I personally
It's not
am
my favorite.
hoping that some of these characters end up teaming up and going along on adventures in season 2, or we'll figure that out. We'll see what happens. Or maybe Carl Weathers coming back in season 2 he's the big bad now because he's like, no, you insulted me and all this kind of stuff, and now I have to send people after you all the time.
I mean
And
that's
it's gonna
already
get
what
crazier
they're doing.
and crazier and
People are
crazier.
being sent after him, so
Yeah. No, but like in a more coordinated effort as opposed to like, here's the bounty, go get them.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's that. That is
Chapter
5,
5.
the
baby.
Gunslinger. Thank you. Oh, I was going to say
Finger guns.
no finger guns, but you
No.
brought them in.
Always appropriate.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. Please go to thatshelf.com for more great podcasts like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Composers. No Budget Nightmares has a great theme song, and you'll enjoy listening to it. The other thing I want to say is please go to that shelf. No, tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten so that you can see other episodes by us. And please follow us on Twitter at TDFSpoiled. You can follow Ben and I personally. You'll see that information everywhere. Rate, subscribe, review, share through Google Plus, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, probably other places you go to get podcasts.
Yeah, and check out the Indiegogo campaign for Deathmatch Dad, because if you're not familiar with that project, it's Daniel's first feature-length kind of writing project. I'm very proud of him for that. But also the director, Ian, and star of the thing, he is giving his body on the line. If you check out his social media, you'll see what they did from a shooting perspective in Hamilton, and he is giving it his all. So don't make it worth it. Like, we want to see this thing. Push it out there. Let's support like local independent projects and talent, and let's bring them up to the big screens, baby.
Yay. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Excellent.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.